Russian colloquialisms.
Иди в баню. Черт побери.
Everyday language.
Слушай.
Короче, давайте договариваться.
Slang.
Стерва.
Пьяница!
Хулиганка.
Саня, держи! Блин, дура, что ли? Уйдет, Саня! Опа! Опа!
Ни хрена. Короче, вот, посмотрите.
And much more coming up in this video right now. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome to Culture TV and to our online program, Let's Speak Russian. This is lesson 59. So in this penultimate lesson, I would like to focus on spoken Russian, so the language that Russians use when they speak. And we'll be looking at words and phrases that can be used in relatively formal situations, as well as in situations that are quite relaxed, casual or informal. But what this video will not contain is foul language. If that's what you're here for, then I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. Yes, okay, you will hear it used in Russia and probably quite often. And there is absolutely a culture surrounding it. I understand all of that, I get it, but we're not going to go there. I don't think it's a good use of our time. The point of this video is firstly to improve your listening skills, and by that I mean the following. In our course, we've seen many words and phrases that, well, obviously exist in Russian, but when they're used by native speakers, they're in a slightly different, altered form. And so without knowing what I'm going to show you today, you would struggle understanding spoken Russian, particularly if it's fast as well. And so, yeah, I'm just going to show you some language that Russians use, and that will help you understand Russians when they speak. I want to give you access to that today. And then also we're going to look at some, words, phrases, expressions that you yourself can employ in your conversations to make them sound more natural, to make you sound like a local, right? So right, let's just get started. Firstly, let's take a look at some filler words. I'm sure you know what these are. So words like well, so, sort of, kind of, and so on. Basically, very good substitutes for or I would say. And I suppose we could use this scale here, where the words that we will look at will range from relatively formal register to quite informal register. But I hope you understand that there are no strict boundaries here. Occasionally, someone might use an informal filler word in a professional scenario and vice versa as well. So the first word is itak, which would probably be translated as so, but this is more formal than the English so, more firm. And this is the kind of word someone would use to draw people's attention, to show that they're about to start speaking, they're about to give an explanation. So commonly this is used by teachers in their lessons. Maybe you could think of a scientist delivering a speech at a conference. When they start introducing a new topic and they're about to explain something, they might say itak. So quite a firm way of starting speaking. Right then, so that kind of idea. Whilst this word, в общем, would be something that you put at the end of your speech to conclude or to summarize, because it means in general. It comes from the Russian adjective общий, and общий means general. And this is used not only after the end of a long speech. No, if you've only been speaking for even half a minute, you can also use в общем to just summarize what you've said. I don't know, maybe your friend has asked you, how was your holiday? Как был твой отпуск? And then you've talked about where you went, what you did, how you spent the time. And then you say, в общем, мне понравилось. All in all, I really enjoyed it. That kind of idea. If you want to rephrase what you've just said, or maybe even simplify it, you might want to use this phrase, то есть, which literally means that be, but I guess the English translation would be that's to say. Now in English we also have the phrase in other words, and this is mirrored in Russian. You could say другими словами, другими словами. And as you may have spotted here, we are using the instrumental case. Since you are using words as an instrument or as a tool to communicate. Alright, hope that makes sense. Другими словами, in other words. And then lastly we have this phrase. Короче говоря. Короче говоря. Which would probably mean to put it short. Короче is a comparative. The adjective is короткий, which means short. If you want to say shorter, that will become короче. And then говоря is something that we call a participle. You don't need to know what that means for now. In English, this is something like speaking short or speaking in a concise way. But the better translation is to put it short. Now, interestingly, if you remove the говоря, короче on its own is quite an informal word. And again, this is my personal opinion, I have to say. Короче might be used in more formal situations, but it means basically. Короче means something like basically. And then by just adding говоря, it already sounds much better and much more formal. Okay, the next word is значит. Значит, which comes from the verb значить, and значить means to mean. And this does not mean it means, well, literally it does, but it is not used in that context. This is another way of saying so. Slightly less formal than итак, and this is generally used by the speaker when they are hesitant. So again, this could be a teacher in a classroom, again, that same scientist at the conference, anyone delivering a speech maybe, or again, it just could be just two people talking, two friends, two family members, whatever. And before starting an explanation, before answering a question, if the speaker is slightly hesitant, they don't know what approach to take, then while they're itching their chin, while they're looking around the room, they might be saying, значит, and then they'll start their explanation. Так сказать would mean something like so to speak. And then we have a synonym for this phrase, скажем так. Скажем так literally means we'll say it this way or we'll put it this way. But again, so to speak is a good translation. Moving further down, we start entering the realm of parasite words, especially if they are overused. So this phrase, как бы, which translates as sort of or kind of, is okay every now and then, but as soon as people start using it over and over again, as you know, it's quite unpleasant. Another phrase with the same meaning is это самое. Это самое, which I suppose could be translated as you know, but it's the same idea really. And here's just an observation from me. I've noticed that как бы is used more by the younger generation, whilst это самое you would hear being used by older people. But again, this is just a general rule. And you may often hear это самое being shortened down to just это самое. So do keep an eye out for that, or rather do keep an ear out for that, I should say. Короче, we've just seen, and then this word, типа, really informal, again used a lot by the youth, and it's the exact equivalent of like. But the universal filler word that I'm sure you've heard of already is no. No is used by all Russians and in almost all situations. It's very versatile, it has many different meanings and can be used in many different combinations. On its own, no could mean either well or so, and again, this could be a replacement for or So when someone asks you a question and you don't know how to answer straight away, you can say no, and then you give your answer. But this shows not necessarily just hesitation, but maybe even doubt, or maybe you're struggling to make a decision. Sometimes even if someone is asking you a leading question, so do you agree that, or would you say that, and you say no, that kind of shows, well, not really. But then no is used, as I say, in combination with quite a few of the words that we've just seen. So for example, no to есть, ну в общем, ну короче, ну типа. And again, this sometimes just might sound a bit more natural than these words in isolation. Ну да can be heard very frequently, and this means something like, well, yes. So this is a bit softer than da on its own. Da is very affirmative. You're quite certain with your answer here. Whilst if you say ну да, you are either showing, again, a little bit of doubt, or maybe that you don't agree 100%, or maybe even that it took you a little bit of time, just that fraction of a second, to make the decision, yes or no. And I guess that, well, if you're learning German or if you speak German, this could be translated as na ja. So in German, they also have the particle na. This is quite similar to no, but not always. Then we have this very useful phrase, no например. No например, which means so, for example. And lastly, no наверное, да. No наверное, да. The translation is, well, yes, probably. Now, наверное is what means probably. We don't pronounce the yeah at the end, and in fact, quite a few Russians, when they write this word, will drop the yeah completely. And yeah, again, this just conveys a little bit of uncertainty with your answer. And наверное and no are used in many other different phrases, and we have a few videos on our channel about that as well. They can be quite hard to understand, particularly this very famous phrase, да нет, наверное. So we'll talk about that in the future as well. But yes, no, it takes time to understand fully how to use it, but for now I've just shown you all of these filler words so that at least you recognize them when you hear Russians speak. But what's even more important for your understanding of spoken Russian is knowing these words in shortened form. This is what I mentioned at the start of the video. What I'm about to show you, the list of words that you're about to see, should be familiar. You should know most of these words here. But actually, Russians shorten them down slightly. They alter these words when they're speaking just so that their speech, flows more smoothly, or that they can speak faster. These are really common, generally used more in informal situations, but then again, I've heard even the president use this sometimes, people delivering speeches in quite professional, important meetings, places. But then again, if you want to make a good impression, you would probably want to avoid these. Anyway, let's just get straight to it. Here's the first word, что. Что, you know very well, means what, and that is shortened down to чё. Чё. Чё, again, used very, very often by Russians in their spoken language. Now, when что is used as a connective, so when it means that, it is not shortened down in this way. So я думаю, чё is not a thing. Always say я думаю, что, я считаю, что, and so on. But you may hear from other people, чё ты думаешь? What do you think? Okay? And therefore, all words that contain что, so the indefinite pronouns, words like что-то, which means something, is shortened down to чё-то, чё-то. And maybe even you'll hear чёт, чёт. And interestingly, чёт or чёта, or in its full form, что-то, can sometimes mean for some reason. So, an example sentence. Мне что-то плохо. Мне что-то плохо. Or мне что-то грустно. For some reason I don't feel well. Or for some reason I'm sad. Quite informal again. Then, что-нибудь, which also means something, is shortened to что-нибудь. Что-нибудь. And then ничего, I haven't included this one here, but I've just remembered. Ничего, which means nothing, will become ничего. Right, now this word, сейчас, which you know means now, very, very frequently is shortened to щас. Щас. And occasionally some people are really lazy and they'll drop the S at the end as well, and they'll say just ща. Now, I want to also point out here that щас sometimes is used as give me a moment, or give me a second, or just wait there. So if someone is asking you to do something and you're a little busy and you want them to just bear with you, you can say щас. Just wait there for a moment, hang on, and I'll be right back, or whatever. Again, quite informal. In a similar fashion, сегодня, which means today, will become сегодня in everyday language. Then we have the question word сколько, which means how much or how many, and that will become сколько. Then столько, which means so many, that will become столько. And actually, if you remove the s at the start of this word, только in Russian means only, and so whenever Russians use the word only, they tend to say только. So do be aware of that as well. Now for a few pronouns. You know that тебя means you in the accusative case. That will become тя, and then тебе, the dative case, will become те. Similarly, себя becomes ся. This is a reflexive pronoun. Себе is се. This next word, вообще, is a new word for us. This is a word with so many different meanings and can be used in so many different ways. We will absolutely do a separate video on that in the future. For now, I'll tell you that this can either mean at all, and generally this means not at all. So maybe вообще нет проблем, no problems at all. Sometimes this can mean completely, right? But again, as I say, we'll talk about this later in the future. This is shortened down to вообще. And вообще actually might be even associated with slang. Now for some numbers. 50 means 50, and Russians tend to say 50. Much faster, much easier to say, probably for you as well. In a similar way, 60 will become 60, 70, and then 80, and I'm afraid there was no room for that here, 80, okay? And then very common as well, тысяча, 1,000, is shortened down to тысяча. And actually, while we're here, I might as well mention to you, there's this Russian anecdote or punchline, whatever you want to call it. A wife calls up her husband and says, где тысяча? The husband replies with, я на улице. I'm outside on the street. The wife then says, да мне все равно, где тысяча, говорю, где тысяча? So, as we've seen, ща is a very informal way of saying щас, and this is how the husband interpreted the question, where are you now? But the wife was saying, где тысяча? Where's the 1,000? And here she means the 1,000 rubles, the banknote. Where's the 1,000 rubles banknote? Have you stolen it? Where is it? So again, just a little joke, bit of wordplay regarding these words in shortened form, bit of slang. Right, now as for slang, I'm only going to give you a few phrases here because, as you know, there are so many different slang words in every language. I don't know all of them, of course. Sometimes I even have to double check with people what they mean. And I really don't like slang. I try to avoid it as much as possible, but you may hear it in Russia. So here's the first word, blin. Blin, which I've translated as damn or damn it. Interestingly, the etymology of this word is quite particular. Blin means a pancake, but then when it's used as an exclamation, it means damn it, or I do apologize, something like crap in English, okay. A better word to use is chort, which literally means the devil, and again this means something like damn or damn it. Kapiec is used every now and then, and it has quite a few different meanings. It can be used in the same way as chort or blin. Sometimes kapiec is used as a reaction. So if someone's been telling you quite a ridiculous, as I say here, story or situation, and you want to react like, dear me, that's just laughable, that's ludicrous, like seriously, you might say kapiec, like, really, is that true? Oh my gosh, kapiec. And then if someone uses kapiec with the dative case, maybe mnie kapiec, nam kapiec, and so on, that means I'm screwed. Then we have the word kruta, or in its adjective form, krutoi, and this means cool. This is probably the least slang word out of all of these here. And lastly, I'll show you this word, kaif. Kaif, which came into Russian not that long ago actually, from Arabic I believe, and so many different meanings. It could mean thrill, pleasure. Basically people use this when they're having fun, having a really good time, really enjoying themselves. So, you know, pleasure, fun, buzz, that kind of idea. And as far as I know, there is also a verb, kaifnуть or kaifovat or something like that, I'm not sure. But again, that's used by Russians every now and then as well. Right, now to finish off the video, I'd like to give you some useful phrases for general conversation use. So if you include these in your conversations, you will sound, you know, like a native, like a local. And these are not really informal. These can be quite formal sometimes, but used by almost everyone. Okay. Some of these I'm sure you know already. So maybe this one, конечно. Конечно means of course. Then we have я согласен, or if you're a female, я согласна. This means I agree. You can add in the negation не to say я не согласен, я не согласна if you don't agree. Then we have this word, обязательно. Обязательно. Quite a long word that comes from the Russian verb обязывать, which means to oblige, and so this would mean something like mandatory or obligatory, but actually in conversation people use this to mean for sure. People use this to convey readiness to do something, for sure, certainly, absolutely. So if someone recommends or gives you some advice, like, I don't know, you should absolutely visit Moscow, and in Russian you can reply with обязательно, yes, I absolutely will. Then you may wish to say, ага, понятно. Понятно means literally everything is clear or everything is comprehensible, understandable. Aha is used a lot by Russians, not necessarily in this construction here, but aha can be a replacement for yes sometimes. But aha, понятно is kind of like, right, I see. Естественно. Естественно literally means naturally, but in conversation, this means either evidently or obviously. Now, before you start speaking, again, maybe to draw people's attention, you might want to say слушай or слушайте if you're addressing someone with вы. And literally this means listen. This is an imperative. You are giving someone the order to listen. But, you know, in English, we tend to say look, don't we? I mean, yeah, we do say listen as well. Yeah, so listen. And then you might start explaining something. But yeah, in Russian, you can actually also say смотри or смотрите. That is usually used when someone is about to explain a difficult concept. So, you know, they've asked a question and then you might say смотри. Right, so listen to this. Let me explain that kind of idea. Then we have вы знаете, or simply знаешь. And this is probably the equivalent of the English you know, but then this is used usually at the start of a sentence before you start speaking, probably before something that will come with a bit of surprise, maybe even a little bit of shock or something unexpected. Not something completely out of the ordinary, but if someone's asked you a question and the answer that you're about to give might not be that expected, you might want to say, вы знаете, and this could mean actually, actually. You know, actually, and then you give the answer. Then we have this long word, действительно. Действительно. And действительно means indeed, or maybe even that's true. But do be aware this is not always used in the same way as indeed in English. Then we have this phrase, в принципе. В принципе, which as you probably have guessed means in principle, but in English we would probably say generally or theoretically. Then we have this very useful word, договорились. Договорились, which comes from the verb договариваться. And договариваться means to make an agreement or to come to an agreement. And so if you say договорились, this means agreed. So maybe you're discussing where you want to meet up with your friends and you've said, right, let's meet here at this time. To finish off the dialogue, you might say договорились. Okay, sorted, agreed. And while we're here, I want to remind you of this very useful and commonly used word давай or давайте, the meanings of which we explored in lesson 50, but can be used along with договорились as well. Then we have this word, просто. Просто can sometimes actually be used as a filler word as well, and Russians use it all over the place. Very similar to the English just or simply. Then we have this lovely phrase, с удовольствием. С удовольствием, which means with pleasure. If someone's offering you to do something, inviting you, you can say с удовольствием. Yes, absolutely, with pleasure. If you want to convey your surprise or shock to what has just been said, you might say серьезно, серьезно, like really, seriously. Another way of saying this is да ты что or да вы что, and you might want to jumble it round and say да что вы or да что ты. Again, seriously or really. And to finish off, I'm going to remind you of хорошо and ладно. Two very similar in meaning words, something like okay or all right. We did have a look at these again in lesson 50 as far as I remember. Alright, so that is it for today. I hope you did find all these words and phrases useful. You will hear them being used. With time and with practice, you hopefully will be able to incorporate these into your speech as well. As always, if you have any questions or comments, you can put them down below. And I will see you next time in our final lesson. Thank you very much for your attention. Take care and goodbye.